Now, let's get into the meeting itself. First and foremost, you want to encourage basic meeting etiquette. There's a number of useful off-the-shelf guidelines that help a group develop etiquette, and some are worth mentioning for inspiration as you evolve your own bespoke rules of your game. We already mentioned why inviting artful participation is a good idea. You know, that self-reflection practice where you regularly check in with yourself to see if your behavior in that moment is the best contribution you can make to the effectiveness of the collaboration. Well, just describing the concept to people, it's likely to increase self-reflection during a meeting. But it also helps to be explicit about any expectations and guidelines related to behavior that you'd like people to be aware of too. What constraints will enable the most effective collaboration during your meeting?
Typically, a group that meets regularly will evolve their own microculture around behavior and practices over time. In this case, regular reflection on how things are done provides an ongoing opportunity for improving your rules of the game. If it's a one-off or occasional meeting, however, define and share expectations and guidelines with attendees before the meeting and ask them to get back to you with any questions or objections they may have. Aim to have guidelines agreed before you meet, so everybody's on board at the start. Making expectations explicit and checking for agreement increases the likelihood that people take ownership of what's expected of them. It's also going to feel a lot more comfortable for people to bring up the topic if someone goes off the rails during the meeting. And having explicit guidelines will provide the team with some predefined ways to get back on track. If you're facilitating the meeting, take a moment at the start to check explicitly if anyone has any objections to you facilitating the group process. And ask people to be proactive and speak up if, in a moment, they find your facilitation unhelpful or think something else is required. This way, you can really take ownership of the facilitator role, with everyone reassured that someone can always stop you in a moment if they think a change would help.
One challenge of online meetings is the tendency to speak over each other, even when we don't intend to. This doesn't only happen in virtual meetings, of course, but in person too. You might also sometimes realize you're taking a lot of airtime, or someone else's, and you feel frustrated or insecure about when and how to come in and contribute to the conversations. Rounds are a simple and effective way of maintaining equivalence during a meeting. They provide a way of ensuring that everyone who wants to has the opportunity to contribute. Basically, a round involves people taking turns to speak. With clear instructions on the intended outcome of a round and a time box for how long to speak for, rounds can really improve communication. If you're facilitating a meeting using rounds, write down the names of everyone in the meeting and alternate who you invite to begin first. Mix up the order each time and give people some notice of when it's their turn to speak by always naming the next two people you're inviting to share. For example, asking Hannah to share first, followed by Eve, and after Hannah has shared, asking Eve followed by John, and so on.
At this point, let's reflect for a moment on the fact that we are human beings living a life besides just the daily work. Whilst it might seem counterintuitive or a waste of time to talk about personal topics during a work meeting, dedicating a few moments to do so can really help people focus on the task at hand. So, have a check-in at the start of the meeting. Invite everyone to share briefly about something that's alive for them personally at this time. Life can be a heroic challenge, and typically, we all have a lot going on besides whatever we're working on together. Taking time to share and hear from others in this way helps to build and maintain our personal connections. It can also help raise awareness of the important things that are going on in each of our lives, and frees energy up for everyone to get on and focus on the work at hand, mindful of what's going on for those around them.
Speaking of focusing on the work at hand, we mentioned earlier about the benefits of visualizing time. And, considering the challenge of finding mutually convenient moments to meet online, you want to make the most of it. Timeboxing really helps. Setting a time box isn't intended as a way to squeeze creative people into tight boxes, although it might feel like that sometimes. Having a time constraint is an enabler for us to keep focus and use our limited time together wisely. If you do find you're getting close to the time limit and there's still more you'd like to achieve, you can consider extending the time, but now you'll do it consciously, mindful of the consequences on the rest of your agenda.
Finally, remember, everything that happens in a meeting provides you with an opportunity for learning, if you take the time to reflect. Of course, many of us have experiences of running retrospectives to improve our work process, but this usually relates to a period of a few days or weeks. Why wait? Consider taking a couple of minutes to reflect on how you're working together during the meeting itself. Invite attendees to share in 2 rounds, the first with appreciations for how you're collaborating, and a second with actionable improvement suggestions. Micro-retrospectives typically yield gains that outweigh the cost of the time they take. Alternatively, if you have a chat channel open or a collaborative document, consider reflecting in silence and write your suggestions down instead. Give everyone a minute to read what's been written and then get back to your meeting in a new and improved way.
Then, at the end of your meeting, allow for some dedicated time to evaluate how things went as well. There are many ways to go about evaluating a meeting, but whichever approach you choose, aim to record some key appreciations and actionable improvement suggestions that people can consider for next time. These suggestions might relate to the effectiveness of the meeting itself, to the facilitation and participation, and to the emotional tone. Remember, if you don't have time to evaluate your meeting because you spent all your time on the other agenda items, schedule twice as long for a meeting evaluation next time, so that you can consider together how to better manage your time.
So, that brings us to the end of our video on getting the best out of your virtual meetings. We hope you've enjoyed watching and you've learned some useful tips and tricks along the way. You'll find links to all the tools and S3 patterns we mentioned in the description below.
If you appreciated this video, please hit the like button. And if you want to keep track of new videos we'll be posting about Sociocracy 3.0 in the future, subscribe below. To find out more about S3, check out sociocracy30.org, and to keep up to date with various ways to learn more, visit us at learns3.org. See you again soon!